Hello, hi, welcome to our show. Thank you, oh you're the best. Thank you. We have a big show for you today. Thanks. Okay, let's get started with our show. Thank you. Welcome to the Keisha Studio Cast, where we examine the things that happened in February 2025, while you were busy doom-scrolling through increasingly apocalyptic weather updates. Today, we're diving into the American job market of 2025, which continues to baffle economists the way my cat is baffled by her own reflection, a mixture of confusion, aggression, and occasionally pawing at something that isn't actually there. The February jobs report released just days ago reveals what can only be described as economic schizophrenia. We gained 157,000 jobs last month, which sounds impressive until you realize we were expected to add 220,000. It's like ordering a large pizza and receiving a medium with an apologetic note saying sorry. We ate some on the way over. Meanwhile, the unemployment rate remains at 4.1%, which economists are calling historically low, the same way my doctor calls my cholesterol historically concerning. What's particularly interesting is that nearly 70% of these new jobs came from just three sectors: healthcare, government, and what's being called professional services, which is basically a fancy way of saying people who stare at spreadsheets and occasionally nod meaningfully during Zoom calls. Meanwhile, manufacturing lost another 15,000 jobs last month, continuing its steady decline since people discovered they could just order things from their phones while sitting on the toilet. And speaking of things circling the drain, let's turn to our senior economic correspondent, Michael, for more insight into what's happening with American wages. Michael?
Thanks, Robert. While job numbers may be causing confusion, what's happening with wages is crystal clear, and it's not pretty. Real wages, which account for inflation, have actually declined by 0.7% over the past year despite nominal wage growth of 3.5%. This means Americans are working just as hard but effectively getting paid less than they were a year ago. This wage erosion is hitting middle-income families particularly hard. A family earning the median household income of $78,500 has effectively lost about $550 in purchasing power over the last year. That's roughly the cost of one emergency room copay, or approximately 7 tanks of gas, or if you live in New York City, about 3 days' worth of coffee.
So Americans are making less money in real terms, which explains why consumer sentiment is at its lowest point since the pandemic. People aren't just imagining they are worse off mathematically speaking, many of them actually are. It's like when your partner says, "I'm fine," but then slams every cabinet door in the kitchen. You don't need a psychology degree to know something's wrong. Now, let's turn to perhaps the most controversial employment trend of 2025, the great government downsizing. The administration's strategy for efficient federal workforce, or as I like to call it, Operation Thanks for Your Service. Now please clean out your desk, has eliminated nearly 25,000 federal positions since January. To understand the human impact of these cuts, we sent our field correspondent, Samantha, to speak with former federal employees in Northern Virginia. Samantha.
I'm here in Arlington, Robert, where the effects of federal downsizing are impossible to miss. Local coffee shops report business is down 30%, and rental vacancies have doubled since December. I spoke with Maria, who worked at the Department of Energy for 12 years before being laid off last month.
I never expected this would happen to me. I was working on renewable energy efficiency standards. One day my boss called us into a Zoom meeting and told us our entire division was being eliminated. 12 years of service, and it was over in a 15-minute call.
Maria is just one of thousands, Robert. The irony is that many of these employees are being replaced by private contractors, who often cost more but don't show up as permanent staff on federal headcounts. It's like firing your gardener to save money, then hiring a landscape consultant at twice the price because it sounds better at neighborhood barbecues.
Thank you, Samantha. And it's worth noting that while the government is cutting jobs, the tech sector is experiencing what industry insiders are calling selective workforce optimization, which is a fancy way of saying firing people with actual skills while desperately hiring AI specialists at obscene salaries. Tech giants announced over 32,000 layoffs in the first quarter of 2025 alone, with companies like Meta, Amazon, and Microsoft leading the charge. Yet simultaneously, these same companies increased their AI departments by an average of 41%. It's like firing your entire kitchen staff, but hiring 17 molecular gastronomists to make foam out of everything. And this AI transformation isn't just changing who gets hired, it's changing how hiring happens. A recent study found that 78% of Fortune 500 companies now use AI for initial resume screening, which explains why job seekers are stuffing their resumes with phrases like synergistic blockchain optimization and quantum-adjacent thought leadership, none of which mean anything, but apparently make the algorithms very excited. So what does all this mean for the average American worker? To find out, we commissioned an exclusive survey of 2,000 working adults across the country. The results were, well, let's just say not great. When asked if they felt financially secure, 68% responded with variations of "Are you fucking kidding me?" while 22% simply sent back photos of their empty refrigerators. And perhaps most tellingly, when asked if they felt optimistic about their career prospects, 59% of respondents said they were actively preparing for alternative careers. The most popular backup plans included social media influencer, 28%, living in the woods at 23%, and hoping to marry rich at a surprisingly high 19%, strategy I personally abandoned after realizing that rich people have standards. The truth is, the American job market in 2025 remains as unpredictable as a game of musical chairs played in the dark, with half the chairs missing and some of the participants secretly carrying tasers. Some people will find seats, others will get shocked, and everyone will be confused about the rules. The only certainty is that when the music stops, someone's going to end up on their ass. And now, this. Thank you for listening to our show. If you'd like to hear more, leave a comment and subscribe. This audiocast is generated for educational and entertainment purposes. Please do your own due diligence, as I can make mistakes, just like that mistake you made and haven't told anyone about. You know, yeah, that one.